Hey, what's up? Dr. Chad with Energy Physio or NRG360. And that's what we're really talking about today. In the clinic, we get a lot of conversation about pain and what that is and what it means and what it doesn't mean. And we end up really creating some systematic thought processes for our patients that help them understand that pain is not really the problem to solve. We don't want to chase pain. Now, certainly pain is important and we want to minimize pain as quickly as possible, because if we don't, that's where care gets escalated up to some of these higher levels that cost more, they're more invasive, and they're not always necessary. So solving the pain problem is important. Really, we want to minimize pain quickly, but then get to solving the root cause problems as quickly as possible, because that's where you're really going to experience longer term pain relief. And it brings up the idea of pain relief and pain freedom are not the same thing. And I'll explain that really quickly. Pain relief is simply minimizing, reducing, getting rid of pain that you are experiencing. But being pain free for an entire lifetime is really impossible. And we don't think you actually want that. In the moment where you're experiencing pain, it seems like, oh, it'd be great if I never had this again. And that's true. But at the same time, pain is a really good tool to help you navigate things in your life about, what things should I change? What things should I modify? How should I adjust my self-care routines? And so that's what pain freedom is. Pain freedom is understanding how to use the experience of pain to help you navigate changing habits, changing movements, and changing the way you take care of yourself to prevent a future episode of pain. So, if you were totally pain-free, you could get burned and not know, or step on a nail and not know. And then, it festers into a foot wound and you never know about it. And then something really bad happens. Pain is there to alert you to small problems so they don't turn into big problems. Similar to the way the technology works in the newer cars, they throw up an indicator on the dashboard that something is going on. And the way the current system is set up for helping people manage pain is you go see a professional and they simply turn the light off, but they never address what that light was connected to. And so really what we want to get to is essentially, if your transmission light comes on, we want to fix your transmission. And that's how pain is in the body. It's a little more obscure because there could be a lot of different things going on. Pain is just an indicator that you've got a problem. It's a lagging indicator, meaning you've had the problem for a while and only now it's accumulated so much mechanical stress that it is producing pain. But we want to use that pain to understand how can we do things differently to minimize the pain and prevent it from coming back later. Now, we communicate this to patients all the time. Pain is a part of the human experience. You're going to have it. It's going to come and go, and that's fine. You don't have to live with it. You don't have to be stuck with it. You don't have to be trapped by it. But understanding how to use that experience of pain to change what you're doing on a daily basis, that's true pain freedom. You're never going to be totally free from pain, but you're also never going to have pain freedom if you always have to go see a professional to get the relief you need. You should know at least the basics of how to take care of yourself. Just like a car, most people know how to put the gas in. It's the most basic function of a car. It doesn't run without gas, and people know that, and they understand, I pull up to the pump, put the card in, fuel up, and then I'm good to go. That's the most basic form of maintenance on a car, just putting gas in it so you can use it. Similarly, for the body, you just have to recognize, hey, what does my body need to function correctly inside of the activities that I choose to participate in? And if I don't have those things, how do I get them so I can do the things that my lifestyle requires without risk of pain, injury, or something more sinister? So really, NRG360, we built with the idea of, with the right information, education, and tools, people can take care of themselves. So many times in the clinic, people come in and we teach them how to do these self-care routines anyway. And those are really what takes people from where they are to where they want to be. Certainly, we can accelerate that in the clinic with some hands-on manual techniques and that type of stuff. But most people could probably solve 90% of their problems or more if they just knew what to do, how to do it, and when to do it. And that's what NRG360 does. NRG360 has empowered us to empower other people to achieve pain freedom, because it not only helps them achieve pain relief, but it teaches them what other things do you need to be doing to make sure this doesn't come back again, and you can become more resilient over time. And the basic concept there is, when your body is missing certain ranges of motion, your joints are stiff, your shoulders, your hips, your knees. If you're doing movements in your day to day that require you to have that mobility and you don't have it, that is why you have pain. Pain doesn't just show up because it wants to. There's some external force or stressor that feeds into that and creates that pain. And so we want to help people understand, like, when you have pain, that means you're not moving well. You've got some stiff joints and muscles behind that. And how do we systematically remove the stiffness from the system so that you can minimize and get rid of pain, but then also improve your body towards those goals of, I need this much motion. Do you have it? Yes or no? We turn the no into a yes. And so that is really the most basic principles that guide NRG360, is teaching people how to take care of themselves so that they can have pain freedom. They will get pain relief inside the program, but pain freedom is really where you want to be, understanding how to use the experience of pain to navigate what should you change in your daily life so that you reduce pain and don't get it again. And it brings up some interesting points. We call it the negative cycle of healthcare. And it's really because there's such a large gap between what is known by the consumer, the average Joe, the me's and you's, the non-PTs, chiros, musculoskeletal health professions. There's such a huge knowledge gap between, like, the people who need the information and the people who have it. And there's really nothing here in the middle that's bridging that gap. And so we really wanted to take a big crack at bridging that gap, because too many times, like, if people don't know what to do, they go see a professional first, and that's always going to cost more money, and it's always going to lead to things that probably people recognize, I shouldn't be doing this, I don't want to be doing this. And so the current pathway for people to take is, when they have pain, they could go see a physical therapist, but most people don't know that, thanks to our professional organization and the lack of marketing direct to consumer in the physical therapy profession, largely perpetuated by the fact that we couldn't just take people off the street for dang near forever. And now we can, so maybe that information's trickling out there at a pace that's slower than we want. But most people, when they have pain, they're going to go see primary care first, which there's nothing wrong with that, except for the only two plays a primary care specialist has is to give medications or refer out. And so it's really a non-solution. People are going there to get their pain problem solved. Pain is not the right thing to treat anyway, and so they walk away with something that treats pain. And, pain is a mechanical problem. And pain medication is a chemical solution. So you might get rid of the pain signaling, but you haven't actually solved the problem. So it's really a non-solution. Now, maybe you take it and it gets rid of the problem for an extended period of time, and that's great. But the underlying things are still there, and that problem will come back. And when it comes back, it's probably worse than the first time you had it. And we see that in the clinic over and over and over and over. So, primary care first, you get medications, and they say, hey, come back in 4 weeks if you're not better. You come back, and of course it's not better because you gave a chemical solution to a mechanical problem. And then they give you a referral to specialty. Now, sometimes they'll refer to therapy, and that's great. There's, just as many problems in that as anything else. But, maybe they refer you to a specialty, and they're probably financially incentivized to do that. And the specialist just gives you stronger medication. Come back in 4 weeks. That doesn't help, and it doesn't. And then, you're on the fast track to injections, MRIs or CT scans or X-rays. And, after that, if you have an injection and don't get pain-free, and you have an MRI and it shows any non-textbook anatomy, you are on the fast track for surgery. Chances are you don't need it, because non-textbook anatomy is not a good indicator of pain. And so really what we're trying to do is just prevent people from getting so far down that path so quickly that it ends up getting them a bunch of things that they probably don't need, that really aren't solutions to the underlying problems anyway. And then, some people are having surgeries that really aren't necessary, and we got a lot of research behind it. So the idea is, if we can integrate with people early through self-care, we can prevent the medications, we can prevent the injections, we can prevent the advanced imaging. All of this stuff costs a ton of money, by the way, which most people don't have. Even if they have great insurance, the average deductible is $6,000, and most people don't have $400 in a savings account to handle an expense. And so, we're trying to help people out, not just in taking care of themselves physically, but also financially. And when you combine those two things together, the emotional and stress of like a physical problem and a financial problem, it starts to bleed out into other areas of people's lives. And it just turns into this real soup of negativity around, man, what's going on? I'm broke and I'm having to spend a bunch of money. I got pain and I can't get rid of it, and medications aren't helping. So now what? And then maybe you have surgery and you got to take time off of work, or you got to take all your PTO, not for a vacation that you wanted to take, but because you're off work, and now you got lost wages. And it's a mess. And so we want to change the entry point from primary care to self-care. And then we want to help people navigate the musculoskeletal healthcare space in a way that is really intentional to help them get what they need when they need it with the person they need it from. And so NRG360 starts with these self-care pieces that are evergreen. It's do you have enough, yes or no? And if the answer is no, we're just going to work these things until the answer is yes. It's very simple stuff. It gets to the root causes. Certain pain sites are always associated with the similar dysfunctions in the rest of the body. And so we just solve for X at all those different places, and it works really well. But when it doesn't, we want to connect people with a virtual provider, because the cost profile is much lower than seeing someone in person, who can then get a little more information and a little more creative in how we're going to help them solve that problem. Because once you get outside those evergreen things that people can and should be doing to take care of their bodies, there are a lot of different pathways we could take to minimize the experience of pain, because that's what people want. Yes, people want their lives back. Yes, they want to participate in their recreational activities or with their family or whatever. But the first problem they want solved is, I want to feel better. And you can't really get to the other things until you help somebody feel better. So making somebody feel better as quickly as possible is the most important thing. And so if somebody's not getting better with the self-care routines, we want to integrate them with a virtual therapist really fast, because then we can get a little more creative in how we use the tools that we have already sent them. Something we haven't talked about is we identified 6 tools that are critical for self-care, and we just ship them straight to your door, right? So you have everything you need. And then you just get essentially a masterclass in self-care delivered via text message, which is everybody's preferred way to communicate. It's very easy to do, very easy to follow along with, very systematic in its approach and its follow-ups. But then it will help you get to the virtual schedule if you're not making progress. And that is so important, because then we can really understand, like, what does somebody need outside of these evergreen things to get them over the hump and start pushing them in the right direction, so that they can get back to doing the things that are just daily and necessary for self-care. Now, if the virtual doesn't work, and I say if the virtual doesn't work, it always works, but sometimes it's not effective enough to get somebody where they need to go. And the truth is, hands-on work is going to be necessary sometimes. That's why guys like me exist, and why chiros exist, and why massage therapists exist. Now, massage therapists, they just, people go there because it feels good, or because they're one of those sickos that like, an elbow shoved, from their back all the way to their belly button, and they just take the pain as much as possible. But we want to get people to an in-person provider, and we have a very specific style of provider that we partner with. One that has created a business environment and a cultural environment where patients get treated one-on-one with very high levels of intention. And that is where we're going to really get to the root cause of problems. And so, it's, the truth is sometimes people are going to need some dry needling, or sometimes people are going to need some manual therapy, or sometimes people are going to need more advanced, like physical cueing and verbal cueing to move in a way that takes the stress out of the body and minimizes pain. And so we really wanted to be intentional in how we help people navigate that. We want to bridge the gap between the professionals and the consumers, so that now consumers can start to do a lot of the things professionals are prescribing or using in the clinic to take care of themselves, because there's no reason not to. But then when that is not enough to get them pain free, we want to escalate that up to virtual, so they can actually communicate with somebody who can help them get the things they need. And then if that is still not quite enough, we want to get them to a clinician who we know is going to solve root cause problems, provide an incredible customer experience, and ultimately help them get where they need to go. And certainly, if somebody actually turns out they've got a problem that indicates they might need to see a specialist, we will refer there. Okay, we're going to be the first people to be like, look, you got something going on. We're not the best fit to solve that because it's a little outside of our scope. And so let us make a really great referral for you to some of our chosen docs in the network who can help solve those problems. And so that's the basic idea behind NRG360 Live, is bridging the gap between the pros and the consumers, filling in that knowledge gap so people can really make a big play towards pain freedom and understanding how to use the experience of pain to take care of themselves in a better way, so they minimize pain and prevent it in the future. But then also, like, once people get into that musculoskeletal health track, we want to help them bypass all the fluff that is not really going to help them. It's going to cost them more money than they want to spend and really not get them any closer to a root cause solution. And we want to help them navigate that in a way that's very intentional and very specific, and ultimately going to get them where they want to go. There's nothing worse than wasting a bunch of time and money in healthcare with nothing to show for it. And we did not want that for our users for NRG360. And, when we think about how people are navigating the pain cycle, it's just because they don't know. They don't know what to do. And so they just do what they know to do, which is go to the doctor. And we don't think primary care is bad. Don't make that your takeaway. We just think primary care serves a more specific purpose in some other areas. Most primary care providers are not trained a whole lot in musculoskeletal care. If they were, they would be doing more things than just providing medications and referrals. And so it's just not the best place to start for musculoskeletal. Musculoskeletal is so unique in that it may be the only facet of healthcare where self-care is actually a place to start. Somebody can't self-diagnose themselves with diabetes or heart condition or high blood pressure. Certainly they could play Google Doc and make some assumptions there, but they can't self-diagnose that. They certainly can't self-treat it without the oversight of a physician. Once the physician is in the picture, diabetics have to manage themselves and people have to take their medications on their own. But musculoskeletal care, you can diagnose your own problems. It's not that hard to do, especially when you're looking to create a functional diagnosis, not a local diagnosis of you have a tendonitis at this, one location, because in reality, that doesn't matter. But if you can create a functional diagnosis of you need this much movement in your joints and you don't have it, your movement should look like this and it doesn't, And so your functional diagnosis is you have stiffness here, 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 and here, and it makes your movement look like this, and this is what creates pain. So we're just going to solve all those other pieces and help you minimize your pain and free your body up to move really easily. So that's interesting to you. Reach out, because we got a lot to say about NRG360. It's going to be the new wave of musculoskeletal care for consumers, teaching them how to take care of themselves. We're building a customer experience behind the scenes with constant information and education, and we want human connection and touch points built in so that people, we think, can get a better experience digitally than they can get even going to see somebody. The human condition is really weird. People don't want to create new relationships, and they don't want to go see the doctor, but they also crave human connection. So if we can figure out how to blend both of those in a way that's like very low barrier to entry, quick touch points that don't take away people's time and money, in a way that makes them resist wanting to see somebody, I think we can make a really big play in helping people learn how to take care of themselves, have a great experience in healthcare, which is really hard to find these days, and ultimately get the results they want. Because that's really what the goal is. We want to help people solve their problems so they can live a higher quality life. Uh, and that's a wrap for today. Appreciate a couple guys who were listening, commented in, and we'll be back on to talk more about this a little later.